There is a particular kind of career that Hollywood depends on completely and almost never talks about. It is not the career of the franchise lead or the award season contender or the actor whose name appears above the title in letters 3 feet tall. It is the career of the person who walks into a scene and makes it real, who brings a weight and a specificity to a supporting role that the entire production needs in order to function, who can be terrifying in one film and quietly devastating in the next and genuinely funny in the one after that, and who does all of it without a publicist manufacturing a mythology around them or a studio machine managing their image. Clifton Powell has been doing that work for more than 4 decades. He has accumulated over 250 screen credits according to his IMDb biography, appeared in films that have generated billions of dollars in combined box office revenue, voiced one of the most recognizable characters in the history of video games, and built a career that has survived industry discrimination, a years-long legal ordeal that was ultimately resolved entirely in his favor, and the specific cruelties that Hollywood reserves for black character actors who refuse to disappear quietly when the industry decides they are inconvenient. At 69 years old, he is still working. And the full story of how he got here, what it cost him, and what he has refused to stop doing in spite of all of it, is considerably more substantial than any clickbait title about a final sentence could ever capture. Clifton Powell was born on March 16, 1956, in Washington, D.C., and grew up in the Northeast D.C. neighborhood of Mayfair Mansions, according to his Wikipedia biography. The neighborhood and the era shaped him in ways that never left. He attended H.D. Woodson Senior High School before transferring to the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, a move that reflected both a genuine artistic inclination and the kind of deliberate redirection that requires someone to have already decided what they want badly enough to pursue it seriously. He was accepted into the workshops for careers in the arts program, an initiative designed specifically to support artistically talented students who might not otherwise have access to professional training pipelines. According to Blavity's detailed profile of his career and net worth published in June 2025, Powell has described the moment he saw the live-action musical My Fair Lady as a student at St. Anthony Catholic School as the experience that first made him understand what performance could be and what it could do. That moment, in a Catholic school auditorium in Northeast D.C., set the direction for everything that followed. He went on to attend Emerson College in Boston, Massachusetts, according to his official biography on IMDb, completing a formal education in the arts that gave his instincts a professional foundation. His first credited screen role came in 1981. What followed across the next decade was the kind of slow, grinding accumulation of experience and visibility that character actors build through showing up consistently and delivering reliably, project after project, without the benefit of a breakout moment that the industry stops to acknowledge. By 1990, he had appeared in House Party, the low-budget comedy produced by Reginald Hudlin that became a cultural touchstone and a genuine commercial success. It was the kind of film that the Hollywood establishment often dismissed and black audiences immediately claimed, and Powell's presence in it placed him inside a community of performers and filmmakers who were building something that the industry was not yet paying adequate attention to. The role that announced his dramatic range to a wider audience came in 1993 with Menace to Society, the Hughes brothers' unflinching portrait of street life in Watts, Los Angeles, that arrived at a moment when American cinema was reckoning seriously with urban realities it had previously either ignored or sentimentalized. Powell's performance brought a raw authenticity and a physical presence that audiences and critics recognized immediately as something that could not be manufactured. It established him as a performer capable of occupying morally complex territory without flinching and without the kind of theatrical signaling that lesser actors use as a substitute for genuine inhabitation of a character. The film has remained a landmark of 1990s American cinema, regularly cited in discussions of the most important urban dramas of that era, and Powell's contribution to it is inseparable from what makes it work. The decade that followed was extraordinarily productive. Dead Presidents arrived in 1995, another Hughes brothers film that placed Powell inside a narrative about Vietnam veterans and the particular devastation that the war and its aftermath inflicted on black communities in America. In 1998, 2 films in a single year demonstrated the range that casting directors were beginning to recognize and use. Why Do Fools Fall in Love cast him against type in a story about the competing widows of rhythm and blues pioneer Frankie Lyman. Rush Hour, the Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker action comedy that became one of the biggest box office successes of that year, placed him inside a mainstream Hollywood production at the peak of its commercial moment. The Friday franchise gave him one of his most beloved characters in the form of Pinky, the jerry-curled gangster whose entrance in Next Friday, stepping out of a pink limousine to deliver a confrontation that became one of the most quoted scenes in the series, has remained a reference point for fans of the franchise for more than 2 decades. According to Blavity's reporting, Ice Cube himself has named Next Friday as his favorite film in the series, and Powell's Pinky is central to why. In 2004, two landmark credits arrived simultaneously. Ray, the Taylor Hackford-directed biographical film about Ray Charles starring Jamie Foxx in an Oscar-winning performance, cast Powell as Jeff Brown, the legendary musician's loyal and long-serving road manager. The performance earned Powell a nomination for an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture, placing him alongside some of the most respected actors working in Hollywood at that moment and providing a form of institutional recognition that validated what his body of work had already demonstrated about his capabilities. The same year, Grand Theft Auto: San Andreas was released by Rockstar Games and became one of the best-selling video games in history. Powell voiced Big Smoke, one of the game's central characters, a role that introduced him to an entirely new generation of audience members who would recognize his voice long before they connected it to his face on screen. According to his famous Birthdays biography, that voice performance reached an audience measured in the tens of millions and gave his career a cultural footprint that extended well beyond the boundaries of film and television. But the story of Clifton Powell's career is not only a story of professional achievement. It is also a story of what the industry did with that achievement and what it cost him to keep going in spite of it. Powell has spoken openly and repeatedly in interviews about the discrimination he encountered throughout his career, discrimination that operated not through overt hostility but through the quieter and more insidious mechanisms of casting decisions made on the basis of his complexion rather than his talent. In a detailed interview with The Art of Dialogue, reported by the Los Angeles Times in September 2025, Powell recalled being fired by his agent at the time, whom he named as Jeff Witches at APA, after accepting a role in the 2005 musical The Gospel. According to Powell's account, the agent called him and asked whether he was doing another one of those little black movies. Powell told him he was, stated that he had a family to feed, and ended the call. He was subsequently let go by the agency. The story is not an anomaly in his experience. It is representative of a pattern he has described across multiple interviews, a pattern in which his talent was considered marketable only within certain narrowly defined boundaries and in which the decision to work within black cinema was treated by industry gatekeepers as a professional liability rather than a legitimate artistic and commercial choice. He has also spoken candidly about the colorism he encountered within the industry, the specific experience of being told by producers and network executives that he was too dark for certain roles or, in one particularly painful instance that he has recounted publicly, that he was so dark he might scare viewers. These were not isolated incidents. They reflected a systemic preference within Hollywood's casting culture that consistently limited the range of roles available to darker-skinned black actors regardless of their demonstrated ability. Powell's response to these experiences was not to modify his appearance or his approach to accommodate the preferences of an industry that was telling him he was the wrong version of himself. It was to keep working, keep accumulating credits, and keep building a body of work that would eventually make the limitations of those preferences impossible to defend. The most publicly damaging period of his career began in 2011 when a woman filed a complaint against him alleging that an encounter in a hotel in New Orleans had crossed a line she had not consented to. Powell denied the allegations unequivocally from the first moment they became public. The criminal investigation that followed was dismissed for lack of evidence. The accuser then pursued a civil case seeking financial damages in excess of $75,000. According to reporting cited across multiple sources, including Blavity's June 2025 profile, the civil case was ultimately thrown out in 2017 due to insufficient evidence to support the claims. His own counterclaims for defamation and emotional distress were dismissed in 2018, closing the matter entirely from a legal standpoint. He was never convicted of any crime. No court found him liable for any wrongdoing. But the damage that accumulated during the years the case was working through the system was real and significant in ways that the eventual legal outcome could not fully reverse. Powell has described the period in interviews with unusual directness, speaking about roles that disappeared after the allegations became public, about a television project where he had expected to appear across 7 or 8 episodes and found his part eliminated after 2 with no formal explanation. About the experience of seeing suspicion in strangers' eyes and reading the assumption of guilt in online commentary that preceded any finding of fact. He has described the emotional cost of that period as comparable only to the loss of his father, framing it not in terms of professional setback, but in terms of the personal wound of having his character publicly questioned in ways that his children could not be shielded from. He maintained his innocence throughout, publicly and consistently, and the courts eventually confirmed that the legal record supported that position. What the courts could not do was restore the years of professional momentum that the allegations had interrupted or erase the reputational damage that public accusation carries in an industry where perception and commercial viability are treated as inseparable. What Powell did after the legal process concluded was what he had always done, which was work. According to his Wikipedia biography and the detailed career documentation provided by Blavity, he transitioned into a sustained period of activity in black television drama that placed him in front of new audiences and demonstrated that his range had not diminished. In 2016, he was cast as Rex Fisher, the main antagonist in Bounce TV's Saints and Sinners, the network's first prime-time soap opera, opposite Vanessa Bell Calloway and Gloria Rubin. The show ran for multiple seasons and gave Powell an extended platform for the kind of complex, morally layered character work that he has always done most effectively. From 2018 to 2019, he appeared in a recurring role as Uncle Lou Duncan in BET's The Family Business alongside a large ensemble cast. He has also appeared in Black Lightning, Hawaii 5-0, and The Last OG, among other productions. As recently as 2025, according to his official IMDb biography and the career documentation compiled by the City Celeb, he appeared in The Family Business, New Orleans, and in BMF, the Starz drama about the Black Mafia family, playing Pastor Coleman. The BMF credit is worth pausing on because of what it represents within the context of his full career. BMF is a serious, well-produced, widely watched drama operating on a premium cable platform with significant production resources and a substantial audience. Playing Pastor Coleman in that environment in 2025, at 69 years old, is not the work of a career in decline. It is the work of a performer who has maintained the craft, the professional reputation, and the casting relationships that get a veteran character actor placed in exactly those kinds of productions. It reflects what Powell has built over 4 decades through consistent presence and consistent delivery, the kind of professional credibility that survives legal ordeals and industry discrimination, and the particular indifference that Hollywood shows toward black character actors once they have passed the age at which the industry considers them commercially useful in obvious ways. Beyond the screen work, Powell has expanded his professional identity in directions that reflect both genuine artistic investment and practical adaptability. He has worked as a producer and director, contributing to the indie series Chase Street, which he directed episodes of between 2017 and 2020. He has taught acting classes at the SAE Institute in Atlanta, working directly with the next generation of performers coming up through a training environment. According to Blavity's reporting, he and his wife own 2 restaurants in Pasadena, California, Clifton's Gourmet Barbecue and the Gourmet Cobbler Factory, which represent the kind of diversified economic foundation that working actors in his position build when they understand that the industry's appetite for any individual performer is unpredictable and that financial security requires something that does not depend entirely on the next casting decision. He has collaborated creatively with his son Clifton Powell Jr., who shares both a name and an interest in filmmaking, a detail that suggests a family culture in which the artistic commitment that shaped his own life has been transmitted to the next generation. What Clifton Powell's story ultimately reveals is not a story about a final sentence or a permanent goodbye or any of the other dramatic framings that clickbait content applies to his name. It is a story about what sustained professional commitment looks like in an industry that is structurally hostile to the kind of career he has built. It is a story about what it costs a black character actor to maintain his integrity and his boundaries across 4 decades in Hollywood, to refuse the roles that conflict with his values, to speak publicly about the agent who fired him for working in black cinema, to name the discrimination he encountered and describe it plainly rather than package it for comfortable consumption. It is a story about surviving a years-long legal ordeal as an innocent man and returning to work because the work is what he does and who he is. And it is a story that is, as of 2025 and 2026, still being written, in BMF episodes and family business installments and whatever project arrives next for a 69-year-old actor with 250 credits, a Pasadena restaurant, an acting class in Atlanta, and absolutely no intention of disappearing.